Archbishop Dominiquae Bierman has traveled the world for over 3 decades proclaiming the gospel from Zion to the nations with miracles following. She exposes the false doctrines of replacement theology and preaches restoration to the Jewish Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. This is the revival of the third millennium, the 21st century like the first century.
Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom, everyone. Here we are again with number 10 of our Against Anti-Semitism series, the 10th day of our prayer and fasting for 21 days against anti-Semitism. This is definitely the urgency of the times because of the quantity of anti-Semitic events that have escalated lately. And we cannot afford to stay silent. In Isaiah 62 verse 1 it says, "For Zion's sake, I will not keep silent." And then it says in 5 and verse 5 and 6 also, "On your walls, O Jerusalem, I have positioned watchmen that will give me no rest, nor day nor night, until he establishes Jerusalem and makes it a praise in the earth." We are during times that are very similar to the times before Hitler came into power, actually while he was already coming into power in the Second World War. And the truth is that there were voices at the time that were confronting the matter, were saying something's wrong, he has bad plans, the Jews are in danger, but those voices were not heeded. But the voices were not strong enough. In fact, most of the church kept silent. Not only kept silent, a lot of them also cooperated with the Nazis at the time. But this time we cannot afford for that to happen. We can see the signs already. We see that in the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, that records and registers all of those incidents that have been reported. But I want to tell you, most of the Jewish people in the USA and probably in every other nation of the world do not complain about anti-Semitic event. How do I know? Because out of the woodworks, people begin to come out and tell me things like, "Oh, now I remember that in my childhood I was abused because I was a Jew, or I was persecuted or clubbed or mocked or humiliated." And when those things were happening, those kids, those little children, they didn't even think to protest or to even complain. They were afraid, they were ashamed, and they didn't even complain. I believe that most of the anti-Semitic events that happen to children are absolutely not reported at all. And sometimes they're not even reported to the parents. Normally children, when they are bullied, they come home and they sulk, or they become like they go into their shell and they become all self-protected. They don't want to talk to anybody. All of a sudden they stop eating and they become depressed, and the parents don't know what happened. And so often, especially when it's Jewish children, there has been some bulliness that has been happening in the school because they're Jews. And the young people, when they go to universities, and one of the biggest cesspools of anti-Semitism that's especially pro-Palestinian anti-Semitism is actually in the colleges of the United States. It's in the universities, even in the high schools, where graffiti like all kinds of Nazi symbols and other things show up in the bathrooms. And let's say you are a Jewish woman and you're going to go to the bathroom, and what you see there is a cuss word against you being Jew, and a swastika painted on the door of the bathroom. That has happened numerous times, both in high schools, in colleges, in universities. How do you think, let's say, a young Jewish girl would feel, a young Jewish boy would feel when he has that in the bathroom? Would he make waves? Would he go to complain? Would he tell something to the principal? Or would he tone it down so that he's not persecuted some more? I'm going to tell you the truth. Most of them tone it down so that they're not persecuted some more. And therefore, we need to be the voice of the voiceless right now. We need to voice their complaints in hopes that they will come out of the woodworks and that they will complain about the anti-Semitic events that are happening in the kindergarten, in the high schools, in the universities, in the colleges, because I'll tell you, Americans, we have relinquished the education of our children to the New World Order, to globalists. We have relinquished the university studies to liberal professors that are teaching them about Palestine and about the Palestinian cause and about all kinds of things that have nothing to do with the Bible. In fact, they oppose the God of Israel in the Bible. And I'm going to show it to you today through scriptures how much this opposes the God of Israel in the Bible. But unfortunately, we have relinquished the education of our children all the way from the 60s, when about all kinds of agendas, pro-abortions, pro-LGBTQ, and things like that began to come up, together with the liberal agendas that also were brewing, that were pro-Palestinian, against Israel, against Zionism, and together with some ancient Christian theologies that were anti-Semitic, they began to form a cesspool of anti-Semitism in our educational establishments. And it's time that we raise up our voices and say, enough is enough. We want our kids back. We want our universities back. We want our colleges back. We want our kindergartens back, our preschoolers back. We want our schools back. We want our kids back from replacement theology, from anti-Semitism. We want them back from liberal theologies, from communism. We want them back from godlessness. We want them back from all of these things that have stolen their souls. And it's time that we, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, if you're listening to me today, rise up and claim your kids back. All of them, teenagers, young people, high schoolers, everybody, and begin to teach them, begin to train them, begin to shake them up. And I'll tell you what you can do. You can send them this book, especially if they can read already and they are of the reading age. Well, you read this book, The Identity Theft, and send them this book because it exposes to the light what anti-Semitism is, both in the theologies and also from both Christian theologies and from Muslim theologies and Palestinian side, the importance of Israel, what the Bible has to say, and how we can teach our children the true gospel that came out of Zion 2,000 years ago. So you read the book, you give it to your teenagers, give it to your school-age children, give it to your university kids, if they are your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Begin to equip them, put weapons of warfare, spiritual warfare, in their hands, because I'll tell you that those anti-Semites, they are violent, they are aggressive, and they are attacking them. So whether you have Jewish children or Christian children, even if you have Muslim children, get this book for them to stop it, because I'm sure that even among the Muslims, there are many that oppose this cause and they don't want this anti-Semitism. They don't want this kind of violence. So make sure you get it, The Identity Theft. It will open up a free online course with many of my videos taped in Israel. And this is a weapon in our hands, a spiritual educational weapon. That's why we call it GRI, the Global Re-Education Initiative, because we need to re-educate all of America. We need to re-educate all of the nations, and especially we need to re-educate all of our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and we are starting late, so we need to start running. Now let me refresh ourselves as what is the definition of anti-Semitism after I give you the plumb line for what does it do in any country, nation, family, or individual. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, it says, YHVH says, the God of Israel says, I will bless those who bless you, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the Jewish people of today, and I will curse those who curse you, Jewish people of today, Israel. And that word means that he will utter a word of complete annihilation, destruction, for those that take Israel lightly, or the Jewish people lightly, humiliate the Jewish people in any way, disrespect them in any way. And it doesn't matter whether it is young people, whether it is old people, anyone like that. So we need to rescue this generation from the curse of Genesis 12:3, so that we can be in the blessing of Genesis 12:3. That blessing is astounding, amazing. He says, I will bow down my knee. That's what levarech means, berech. The word berech is the knee. I will, Yahweh, the Almighty speaking, I will bow down my knee to exalt, to bless, to favor those who bow down their knees, to bless, to favor, to protect, to do good to my people Israel, to my Jewish people. And so it's time that all of our children will learn. So parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, this call is for you. And if you're a young person, get that book, get it quickly, and begin to share it with all that you know. We've got to begin to oppose it, and oppose it. Remember that the only thing that godly people need to do so that evil will succeed is do nothing about it. And if you go to past broadcasts that I've had in an entire series that is called Taking Charge, that I have on Facebook, I have on YouTube, Taking Charge, or Are You Taking Charge? You're going to see that he established the fact that in Matthew 28, when Yeshua gives the Great Commission to the Jewish disciples of the first century, he says, all authority has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. Therefore you go and make disciples of all nations, teaching them to obey all that I have commanded you. And lo, and behold, I am with you always. And so he said, all authority has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. Therefore you go. And therefore, if all authority is Yeshua's, then there is no authority that the devil has at all. The devil can only work through lies. The way that it works is through tactics of intimidation, of fear, like all the tactics of intimidation and fear that have been happening since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been so many tactics of fear and intimidation. And by the way, even blood labels that have been labeling the Jews as if the Jews brought in the plague. Can you imagine? Even that has happened during this time. But all of this has happened through fear, intimidation, panic, and anxiety, even though doctors have been saying, no, that's not true. You do not take it that way. This is not accurate. And yet the devil always works through fear and intimidation in the same way. He has been working in the society of America, in the society of the nations, so that people will not bring out in the open all of the incidents of anti-Semitism that are happening because they are afraid of retaliation. And therefore, it's always the fear and the intimidation. And right now, we bind that spirit of fear and intimidation. We break the power of fear and intimidation and all the lies of the devil that do not allow Jewish people that have been attacked, and even maybe Messianic Jews that have been attacked. Often, even sometimes, even inside of some Christian circles, there has been some attacks to Messianic Jews. For example, I was walking together with our team in Georgia, and we were, after doing the march around the capital, a repentance kind of Jericho march around the capital of Georgia. And we were praying for various things and repenting for various things concerning the USA, for God to forgive us and to bring us a righteous government and to overturn any kind of fraud in the elections and things like that. But we were really praying around the Capitol. And I'll tell you that right after we finished that march, we decided to take a stroll on downtown of Georgia, downtown Atlanta, near the CNN headquarters where our hotel was. And we began to walk around there, and before you know it, I hear these voices that felt like discrepant in my heart with very, very fierce drumming. And lo and behold, what I do see is a group of black Hebrews that they call themselves that way. They're not Hebrew, they're not Jewish in any way, shape, or form, or Israelite at all, but they call themselves that way because they are in full blown replacement theology, replacing Israel, declaring that they are the true Israel and that the Jewish people are the synagogue of Satan. How do I know it? Because I came to them when I heard what they were saying, and I said, so if you are the true Israel, who is the state of Israel of today? Who are the Jewish people of today? Are they not the chosen people? And they began to speak in a megaphone out loud with drums. No police stopped them or anything like that, with great violence in the way they were saying it. And they were saying, you are the synagogue of Satan. And they were quoting from the book of Revelation, not knowing that actually they were exuding a church of Satan, let alone a synagogue of Satan, or a synagogue of Satan right there, that hates the Jewish people with such passion that I was there. And I tell you something, my heart was horrified about the depth of hatred of these people that call themselves Christian, and they're Hebrew, they call themselves Hebrew, black Hebrews. And there's also white supremacy, like, for example, there's one group in Alaska that's a white supremacy group that's called the Hammer. And it's been going around doing all kinds of things and leaving their signature everywhere. We are everywhere, saying things like that, intimidating and making the people afraid, and with anti-Semitism slurs and with Nazi symbols and swastikas and things like that. And so, but the thing is that it's not only those very those very fringe groups that are very extreme. They're dangerous. They are very dangerous, and they need to be stopped. And when there is this hateful speech, how interesting that when they were speaking so hatefully about Israel and about the Jewish people, and I am present in this situation, my team is present in this situation, and no policeman, no one came and said, stop that hate speech. Now imagine they would have been doing that against homosexuals. Imagine they would have stand and said some evil stuff against homosexuals and lesbians. Chances are they would have been arrested, but they were not arrested because they were speaking evil about the Jews and about Israel. That's why they were not arrested, because the police has not showed up enough to stop this charade, though there has been laws that this is criminal. Praise God again for our governor, Ron DeSantis, that calls all kinds of incidents of anti-Semitism criminal, and that if there is any attack against Jews in Florida, they will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But I want to see that in all the 50 states of the USA. Every one of those states must do it if we want to become a sheep nation, that is, because sheep nations are those that espouse biblical politics and they protect the Jewish population and fulfill the blessing part of Genesis 12:3 and not the curse part. Now, listen well. I'm going to repeat again the definition of anti-Semitism from the 19th century, and that's from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. I want to refresh our minds again. It is discrimination or hostility against the Jewish people as a religious group, as an ethnic group, and as a racial group. Until the 19th century, there was no definition of anti-Semitism because it was accepted in all of the churches, and the Christian churches absolutely accepted to speak evil about the Jews, to say they killed Christ, and to espouse all kinds of anti-Semitic theologies. But from the 19th century, they began to wake up and began to then establish and coin a term that defined anti-Semitism as a social ill. But imagine that until then, it was not only acceptable but encouraged by the clergy. This is pure history, and therefore I ask you to read my book, The Identity Theft, because it has quotes from the church fathers that not only are anti-Semitic quotes, horrendous quotes, but on top of it, they encourage the people in them. So read the quotes, read my book, you're going to have your eyes opened up. But that's from the Christian side. Many Jews that have been killed in the name of Jesus Christ, all the way to the Nazi Holocaust, the Nazi Shoah. But then the Palestinian cause was concocted as what I call Hitler's child. And I want you to please go and watch that video that I have in Facebook and YouTube about this. And that is actually number 9 in the series against anti-Semitism. So you can watch it right there on number 9. and I call it Hitler's child because the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem met with Hitler in 1941, and they got into covenant agreement to annihilate the Jewish people from within the land of Israel, to finish the final solution within the land of Israel, and to concoct it through a cause that would be called the Palestinian cause. Out of it came the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the Hamas, the Fatah, the Hezbollah, the Al-Qaeda, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of them that they don't agree almost on anything, but they do agree on one thing: let's kill all the Jews and let's throw them to the sea and take all the land of Israel to be called Palestine. And that is not the covenant name of the land. You've got to go back to my number 5, my number 6 of Against Anti-Semitism series. You can have them on demand on Roku, you can have them on YouTube, you can have them on Facebook, but go watch them because you will have the full picture in a much more clear way. So go watch 5, 6, and 9, all about Hitler's child, the Palestinian cause. And so that's so absolutely important that we understand that most of the anti-Semitic attacks right now are in the name of the Palestinian cause, and they are in pro-Palestinian or against Israel rallies all over the USA that have been espoused so much by the left, especially by the ruling party in the United States right now, has been so silent when anti-Semitic remarks have come from their own party by the famous or infamous quartet, or whatever they are called, all these women that are talking against the Jewish people, against Israel, against Zionism, and nobody stopped them from their own party. So let me show you what is happening now. I mentioned a lot in the USA. I've mentioned many incidents. You need to go back and see all my videos, as I said, in Roku, Facebook, or YouTube. You're going to see all the different parts of this series against anti-Semitism. And I'm going to just now mention an event that happened in the UK, because you're going to see that this is not only in the United States, but it's in many countries around the world, if not most of them. And in the UK, this came to me on July 4th of all days. It came from David Rosenberg here, from the London archive of Nati Shohat from Flash 90. A British Jewish man was threatened with violence twice in less than an hour while traveling on public transportation in London Saturday night. In 2 separate incidents, the man, who is visibly Jewish, according to his brother, Shlomi Liberov, was singled out for anti-Semitic harassment and violent threats around midnight on Saturday Shabbat. In the first incident, Liberov wrote, his brother was riding on a bus towards Oxford Circus at approximately 11:30 p.m. Saturday night, when a fellow passenger threatened to murder him, saying he would shank him, slit his throat for Palestine, and beat the shit out of you. The man who made the threats also made a number of vulgar comments, calling the Jewish man a F-U-C-K-I-N-G scumbag and an F-U-C-K-I-N-G Jewish. When the abuser stepped off the bus, he banged his hands on the doors while shouting, "Free Palestine!" and continuing to hurl vulgar insults. Less than an hour later, when the Jewish man stepped off the bus at Oxford Circus, he was again targeted for anti-Semitic abuse while riding down an escalator. One other man riding the escalator shouted, F-U-C-K-I-N-G, hate the Jews, while another said, we've got a Jew behind us. Portions of both incidents were filmed and uploaded to social media. The victim's brother lamented that in London, walking in the street or using public transport when visibly Jewish, such as by wearing a kippah, a yarmulke, is likely to invite abuse. This happens all the time to friends, and is rather normal, but seems to have increased in recent times. The issue is historic police inaction means it's often unreported, Liberov told the Daily Mail. What did I tell you when I started this? I said most of the anti-Semitic events are not reported. And I'm going to tell you that I still remember when Rabbi Baruch and I were doing a glory conference in Paris, as we were invited by David Herzog at the time to do this conference in Paris with him. And we decided to walk through the Champs-Élysées to the Arc of Triumph. And we walked with our shofars in hands. Rabbi had a kippah on, and we were obviously Jewish. And I remember that as we were walking that way, some people came to us, people that were probably Jewish themselves, and they came to us and said, "Are you out of your mind that you are walking out like that, obviously Jewish, with your shofar out and with your kippah out? Are you not afraid?" And we said, "We absolutely are not afraid." Took out our shofars and blew it right there at the Arc of Triumph, because we refuse to be intimidated by the bullies of the Palestinian cause that is Hitler's child. Refuse to be intimidated. And I'm going to tell you something else. The God of Israel is stronger than any one of those intimidations and those fears. And in fact, he says clearly that he that touches the Jewish people touches the apple of his eye. He that touches Israel, in Zechariah chapter 2, touches the apple of his eye, and he's got a knee-jerk reaction. Lately, I've seen a post that was published on Facebook. It was published on Facebook by a page owned by some quote-unquote Palestinians. And it was about the founder of Aviatar, which is a special settlement in Judea and Samaria that has been contested by our enemies, really, has been contested. And they put a post there in which these quote-unquote Palestinian people, they were writing this thing. They were writing, and the picture was of the head of Aviatar together with his beautiful wife and all of his beautiful, gorgeous children and a baby. And they said, "I wish your wife will become a widow and your babies will become all orphans. Somebody kills you." And you know what? This man went, the Jewish man, the Israeli man, he went and he complained with Facebook, and Facebook refused to remove the post. But afterwards, when Arutz Sheva, that's Israeli news, published this incident, then all of a sudden Facebook was willing to remove the post, but he wasn't willing when this man complained. That's a type of anti-Semitism that's going in the media, social media, in the schools in America, in the UK, and in many countries of the world. Now go ahead and share this video with everyone to bring awareness and to bring opposition to this in Yeshua's mighty name. Amen.
If you enjoyed today's program, support this broadcast by donating to kad-esh.org. To connect with us, write to info@kad-esh.org or mail to 52 Tuscan Way, Suite 202-412, St. Augustine, Florida, 32092, USA. Or call us at 1-972-301-7087. We'd love to hear from you. And join us again next week. Shalom.